Alright, fellow Slayers, it's time for the final episode of Review of the Day, which is. What was it called again? Oh, yeah. Faith, Hope, and Trick. Sorry, almost forgot the name of the episode I was about to review. Anyway. Willow is babbling to Oz about how they are seniors and are now allowed to go off school campus for lunch. Still, it takes Xander, Cordelia, and Oz to get her to walk to the grassy area where Buffy set up a picnic basket. Since she is still expelled and forbidden from entering the grounds. They proceed to chat about Martha Stewart, Scott Hope, and the meeting that Buffy will attend with Principal Snyder later on. That night, we are introduced to Kakistos and his right-hand man, Mr. Trick, as they drive up to the Happy Burger drive-thru. Trick remarks on Sunnydale finding it quaint. He also makes note of the town's remarkable whiteness, quipping, admittedly, it's not haven for the brothers, strictly the Caucasian persuasion here in the Dale. Draco Sundry asks Kakistos describes in gory detail his plans for the Slayer. Trick then pulls the drive-thru attendant through the window into the car and begins to feed on him. Ooh. Meanwhile, Buffy has yet another dream involving Angel, this time at the Bronze. As they dance to friend their friends, Buffy's Claudel ring falls off her finger. When Angel picks it up, the dream becomes a flashback of Buffy killing him. He clenches the ring in his fingers until blood runs between his fingers, and blood also starts to stain his white shirt, exactly where Buffy had to impale him. He tells her to go to hell, and his appearance changes to that of a zombie. Buffy wakes up, and Joyce is asking her if she's ready to face the principal. Principal Snyder informs Buffy, through gritted teeth, that she's readmitted into Sunnydale High School. Although not happy about it, he's been overruled by the school board as, since Buffy is no longer suspected of murder, she is entitled to public education. He lays out some conditions, but it seems they're not actually requirements for admission. Simply cites cruelty toward an unwanted pupil. He tells her she has to take a makeup test, see the school psychologist, and get a glowing letter of recommendation from a member of the faculty other than Giles. But Buffy and Joyce both know that Snyder has been overruled, and while he's happy enough to point out his position probably feels meaningless now, Joyce takes a more childish approach to express her delight. Buffy and Willow go to the library, where Giles has asked them to help him for help on research. He wants to perform binding spell on Acathla to make sure that the demon cannot be resurrected again, and asks for as many details as possible about how she defeated him. Buffy answers his questions, believes out the fact Angel's soul had been returned before she sent him to hell. Buffy rushes out in order to take her English makeup exam. Willow tries to persuade Giles that she could help with the magic spell. At the Bronze, Willow and Oz are kissing when Buffy comes up with drinks. She reveals that she passed her English makeup and is glad to be back in her own life. Just then, Buffy is approached by Scott. When asked to dance, however, she babbles through a few excuses and a thank you. Scott interrupts and tells her where he'll be if she changes her mind and wants to dance later. Cordelia and Xander approach, calling the gang's attention to two of the people on the dance floor, one of which is dressed and acting like she is from a much earlier decade and dancing with a young woman. Buffy speculates that he might be a vampire. One of which is dressed and acting like he is from a much earlier decade and dancing with a young woman. Buffy speculates that he might be a vampire and follows him out, though she's distracted for a few moments by Scott. The gang follows her out as well, and right when they're ready to turn back, they hear signs of a struggle and head towards them. However, when they get there, they find that the girl is more than capable of taking care of herself, making everyone come to the conclusion that she is a Slayer. When Buffy arrives, the girl introduces herself as Faith, before staking the vampire and walking away. Back inside the Bronze, Faith is telling lewd stories about slaying to the gang and how, since her watcher was called to England, she wanted to take this opportunity to compare notes with Buffy. She apparently thinks that Giles has gone to England as well. Cordelia figures out that Faith must have been called to duty as a Slayer when Kendra died. Faith wants to hear a story from Buffy, but is quickly distracted when Cinder asks for the alligator story. When Buffy is asked what her toughest kill was, she flashes back to killing Angel, but says that they are all difficult. Oz asks about her stance on werewolves. Faith doesn't have a problem with them. Giles confirms that a Watcher's retreat is going on in England, but that he wasn't invited. Upon meeting Giles, Faith says that she should have requested a transfer. Buffy invites her to dinner, and then asks Willow for help studying. She's ignored, though, and sits in the library. She leaves later, when Giles begins asking her more details about more questions about details of Acathala's demise. Get back here. Okay. Willow and Xander is showing Faith all the places in the school where supernatural things had occurred, when Faith turns to get water. Finished, she accidentally bumps into Scott and the two start talking. Buffy shows up just in time to see the two of them apparently flirting. Willow starts talking about how Faith and Scott might hit it off, and agrees with Faith that Buffy needs to find the fun. Buffy then drags Faith away. Elsewhere, Mr. Trick is filling Kakistos in on what they can do in Sunnydale, before informing the vampire that there was already Slayer there, a fact which indicates that they are not after Buffy after all, but Faith instead. Kakistos also draws attention to the scar of his right eye, saying that she'll pay for what she did to me. Mr. Trick agrees, before going to answer the door and dragging the pizza delivery man in for all the vampires to feed on. Ugh. Mrs. Summers and Faith are talking at the dinner table, discussing slaying. Mrs. Summers appears to think that Faith might be a better slayer than Buffy, then leaves to go get another drink for Faith. Buffy follows Joyce to talk, revealing that she doesn't want Faith to steal her life, like she seems to be doing. Miss Summers says that Faith could share in the slaying, though, and that they could even ask Faith to take over. Buffy accidentally tells her mom that new slayers are only called to duty when the old one dies, which makes her mother freak out, because Buffy never revealed to her that she had been temporarily killed while fighting the Master. They finish talking, though, and both feel better. While Buffy and Faith patrol, Faith starts talking about Angel. The two verbally spar before vampires interrupt. Faith starts beating one into a pulp as two drag Buffy down, mentioning Kakistos as they do. Paradoxically, Faith appears to enjoy beating the vampires more than slaying them, even to the point of ignoring Buffy's plea for help. When Buffy yells to Faith, the latter merely says that she was doing her job and walks away. Buffy tries talking to Giles, but he tells Buffy it's clear she and Faith have different personalities, but agrees to get in touch with Faith's watcher. Giles begins mulling over what might be going on at the retreat before asking Buffy details to trace the slain vampire's lineage. Upon hearing Buffy try saying Kakistos, he runs off to the library to grab a book. He finds that Kakistos is one of the most brutal vampires around, and is so old his hands and feet have become cloven. With the fact that both the vampire Kakistos and Faith appeared around the same time, Giles and Buffy begin wondering if the two are connected. They formulate their plans together, then go their separate ways. On her way out, Buffy runs into Scott, who again tries to ask her on a date. Buffy accepts, but then runs away when Scott hands her a Gladar ring, exactly like the one Angel had given her. Giles comes up and tells Buffy that Faith's watcher is dead. But Buffy goes to see Faith and begins talking about Kakistos, surprising Faith with the fact that the vampire is in town. Faith starts panicking, but Buffy brings up her watcher's death, which stops Faith in her tracks, and she reveals that it was Kakistos who brutally killed her. They are interrupted by a knock on the door, and Kakistos is outside with the dead motel operator. Faith and Buffy run, eventually ending up in the exact warehouse where Kakistos had been staying. Faith begins to fall apart, having witnessed the murder of her watcher, right before bringing attention to the fact that they were herded there. Buffy yells at Faith, repeating the number one rule of slaying: don't die. Buffy fights the rest of the vamps while Kakistos starts beating Faith. Buffy intervenes, and Mr. Trick takes the time to leave with one of their vamps. Buffy stakes Kakistos, but is told that regular stake isn't enough to kill him. Faith recovers and picks up a thick wooden post that she had broken earlier, using it to impale and thus dust Kakistos. Back in the library, Giles tells Buffy that the Watchers' Council has agreed to allow Faith to remain in Sunnydale, and he will act as her watcher until a new one is sent. Buffy finally reveals to the others that Willow's restoration spell had cured Angel just before she was forced to kill him. She tells him all the details, and Willow and Giles proceed to stare at her. Giles says that it will help with the binding spell, and Willow empathizes with Buffy and apologizes. When Buffy leaves, Willow once again approaches Giles about the spell, only to be told that the spell doesn't exist, and he was merely trying to get Buffy to talk about what had happened. After Buffy finally talks to Scott, and they make plans to go out later on. Buffy goes to the mansion, finally being able to say goodbye. She leaves her Claddagh ring on the spot where she killed Angel and goes out. The ring starts to quiver on the floor, however, and a bright white light appears. As the light drops, naked figure, Angel, shivering, back from hell. Dun dun dun. So let's take a look at some continuity surrounding this episode. This about introduces the character of Faith Lehane, who plays a vital part in the remainder of the series. The minor characters Mr. Trick and Scott Hope are also introduced. Buffy recognizes Disco Dave as a vampire due to his dated dance moves and clothing. In Welcome to the Hellmouth, Buffy was able to pick the vampire Thomas out of a crowd based solely on his out-of-fashion clothes. Faith is revealed to be the new Slayer, activated after Kendra's death in Becoming Part 1. Faith first meets the Scoobies and borrows by mistake to slay a vampire, a similar dynamic that will happen again in the reunion in Dirty Girls. Faith mentions that slaying just always makes you hungry and horny. Many Buffy sexual encounters in the series take place immediately after slaying or violence of some kind. The surprise with Angel, the harsh light of day with Parker Abrams, the I in Team with Riley Finn, Where the Wild Things Are with Riley again, Smash with Spike, Not with Spike again, Dead Things with Spike, and Twilight Part 3 with Angel. In Season 6, Dawn observes that Buffy always heads straight to the refrigerator after patrol, implying that the hungry part might also be true. Xander openly shows an attraction to Faith, whom will lose his virginity to in the Zeppo. In the non-canon novel Spike and Drew Pity Made Soul in a Row, Kakiso is revealed to have the habit of making his victims wrestle alligators while in Missouri, implied as the inspiration for Faith's tale in this episode. The non-canon novel Go Ask Malice includes a complete tale of Faith rescuing church folks outside her house from vampires. When Buffy complains about Faith, Joyce replies, "It's probably better that you were only a child." This will become a somewhat ironic statement following the introduction of Dawn. Buffy feels as if Faith is taking her life, a theme further explored in the season 4 episode This Year's Girl and Who Are You?, in which Faith literally switches lives and bodies with Buffy, and in the season 7 episode Empty Places and Touched, when Faith takes over her position as leader of the Scoobies. Buffy begins a relationship with Scott. However, this relationship ends 2 episodes later in Homecoming, where Scott says that Buffy isn't that exciting anymore. Scott isn't mentioned again until Conversation with Dead People, when former high school classmate Hulda Webster points out that Scott told some people that Buffy was gay and that Scott himself came out the previous year. Xander and Willow reference several events that have taken place in the previous season. They were attacked by snakes and I Only Have Eyes for You. Angel tried to kill Willow in Innocence, and when Spike attacked them out on parent-teacher night in School Hard. Buffy briefly mentions the 3 who appeared in the episode Angel. There was also a reference to the rocket launcher used to kill the judge in Innocence. When Faith professes her attraction to Giles, and Buffy remarks, "Raise your hand if ew," Willow notably does not raise her hand. She confessed to having had a crush on Giles and Where the Wild Things Are. Faith describes Buffy as wound too tight, and would again describe her as Little Miss Tightly Wound in Dirty Girls. Buffy admits years later that she was, according to Probably Report, tightly wound in Freefall Part 1. Buffy mispronounces Kakiso's name, a tendency she also displayed in Nightmares, Bad Eggs, and Becoming Part 1, and so on. Buffy and Giles discuss their belief in the non-existence of leprechauns, as shared by Sid Verzlika in Double or Nothing, and Jacob Crane in Unleashed. The leprechauns eventually appear in Day Off or Harmony in My Head, and United Part 2. Buffy tells Faith the first rule of slaying is don't die, which resonates with Buffy's #1 key rule while patrolling with Satsu, you are always in danger. When Faith and Buffy are attacked by Kakisos in Faith's hotel room, the vamps come in without being invited. It's so established that vampires do not need invitations to hotel rooms, as seen in Innocence and the Zeppo. Buffy finally faces up to her ordeal from Becoming Part 2, and becomes general knowledge among the Scoobies that Angel was re-ensouled prior to being killed. Willow continues to dabble in magic after her attempt to restore Angel's soul. Even more encouraged when she finds out that she had in fact succeeded in the ritual of restoration. Yep. Alright. So let's take a look at some production notes surrounding this episode. According to the Pulpit Shooting script, the title of this episode is Faith, Hope, and Trick, rather than Faith, Hope, and Trick, or Faith, Hope, and Trick. Okay then. The title refers to the three new characters it introduces: Faith Lane, Scott Hope, and Mr. Trick. It's also playing Corinthians 13:13, and now abide faith, hope, and love, these three. But the greatest of these is love. In this passage, the three theological virtues are listed as either faith, hope, and charity, or faith, hope, and love. This episode features the band Darling Violetta performing at the Bronze. The band will later write and perform the theme song to the Angels series. Zach Hudson, who portrays the Heavy Burger employee, returns to the series as the monster in the episode Superstar. Yeah, so overall I think this episode is pretty good, and I do like the fact that this episode introduces the character of Faith, who will become an important character later on in the franchise, so yeah. So overall I give Faith, Hope, and Trick 4 vampire steaks out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in tomorrow as we take a look at the next episode, Beauty and the Beast. So, until then, here endeth the lesson.